everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this Wednesday evening. We are absolutely delighted to have you all with us today. I just cannot thank you enough for spending your Wednesday night with us. It's going to be an amazing event. Also, there's so many of you from literally all over the globe. I saw Australia on there and all over the United States. Thank you guys sincerely for spending your evenings with us. My name is McKaylee. I work at Tattered Cover Bookstore, and I just want to give you a quick update about Tattered Cover. For those who might not know, we're actually located in Denver, Colorado, around the Denver metro area, and we have 4 stores. For those of you who are in the area, all of our stores are currently open to the public, so you're more than welcome to come in as long as you have your mask on, and you can still shop with us for about 90 minutes or so, and we'll let you guys come in and browse books, get new and used and bargain books, which are all things that we sell, along with, socks and other gift items as well. But for those of you who may not be in the area or who may want to stay inside and shop in your pajamas, our website's still open 24/7. So you can go to tatteredcover.com and order all of your books there, including Next to Last Stand, which is the book that we're talking about today with Craig Johnson and Lou Diamond Phillips. I also just want to let you all know that closed captioning is available on this video for those who might need it. And if you do, the screen that you're watching me on right now, you just want to hover your mouse over it. There's a little CC button down at the bottom of it that you can click, and that'll provide closed captioning. So I want to move in to talk about these 2 amazing men. I'm thrilled to talk with them and chat with them. You guys were in for such a wonderful event. So first I want to introduce Lou Diamond Phillips. Lou Diamond Phillips is currently starring in the Fox series Prodigal Son, having recently starred on the acclaimed Netflix series Longmire, based on the Walt Longmire mystery novels by Craig Johnson. Other recent credits include Amazon's Goliath, FX's You're the Worst, CBS's Blue Bloods, and recurring roles on Fox's Brooklyn Nine-Nine and Netflix's The Ranch. He received an Emmy for nomination for Outstanding Actor in a Short-Form Drama or Comedy for his roles in both Amazon's Conversations in LA and History Channel's Crossroads of History. Recent film credits include Warner Brothers' The 33, Created Equal, directed by Bill Duke, and Sundance Festival favorite Philly Brown, for which he was named Best Actor at the Imagen Awards. As a director, Phillips recently helmed episodes of AMC's hit series Fear the Walking Dead, Longmire, and ABC's Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Phillips is also an author, and a little birdie told me he has a book coming out in October, which we'll have to talk about. His novel, The Tinderbox of Soldier, The Soldier of Indra, with illustrations by his wife, will be published October 20th. He has written the screenplays for Trespasses and HBO's Dangerous Touch. He wrote Miramax's feature Ambition. He recently produced his play Burning Desire, a romantic comedy in 2 acts, which received its world premiere at the Seven Angels Theater in Waterbury, Connecticut. Phillips was also asked by his good friend and novelist Craig Johnson to write the foreword to his collection of short stories, Wait for Signs. Originally born in the Philippines, Phillips was raised in Texas and is a graduate of University of Texas at Arlington with a BFA in drama. And now we're actually going to get a chance to hear a little bit of Lou reading from Next to Last Stand. So I'm going to be playing a video super quick here. It's about 9 minutes long of you guys getting to listen to Lou read Craig's book. So let me just get that all prepped up and ready to go here. We're gonna make this nice and big for y'all and enjoy.
The chief of the Cheyenne Nation and tribal elder Lonnie Littlebird was rolled forward to our table. A muscular young man who looked familiar steering him over and smiling down at us as the chief displayed a mock anger. "You have eaten without me?" Glancing up at the young man, he shook his fist. Gone are the days when the younger generation paid tribute and treated their elders with the respect they richly deserved. Yes, it is so. Barrett Long, Police Chief Lolo Long's little brother, extended a hand to Vic, then to Henry, and finally to me before glancing back at Lonnie. "You want a Coke, old man?" The indignity disappeared. "Yes, with ice, please." He turned back to us once the young man was safely out of ear reach. "He is a very good boy." The bear placed a hand on the old Indian's arm, slender with pronounced veins. How are you, Lonnie? My legs hurt. You do not have any legs. That is probably why they hurt. He glanced at Vic. She smiled. Hi. Have we met? Yes. He leaned in toward her. Did we sleep together? I don't think so. Well, hopefully we will get another chance. Yes, it is so. He turned back to me. Someone has stolen your painting? I gave out with my rote response. It wasn't really a painting and it wasn't really mine. Ignoring me, he threw the lock on his wheelchair and leaned back like a self-satisfied potentate. When was the last time we worked on a case together? I glanced at Henry and cleared my throat. I don't think we've ever worked on a case together, Lonnie. The time we caught that guy who robbed the Blue Cow Cafe, and then the other one a year and a half ago. He reached out and patted my hand. That was a good case. The one with the girl who fell. We broke that one wide open, didn't we? I glanced at Henry, who shrugged. Yep, we did. You should be looking for a white person. They steal things. He glanced around. They stole a whole country from us. Attempting to distract him, Henry inquired as to the subject of late. They were asking about the Battle of the Greasy Grass, Lonnie. Lost in thought for a moment, he pursed his lips and began speaking. My grandfather fought in this battle, but he never talked about it. He never talked about anything. There was a time when I was growing up that I thought he didn't know how to talk. One time when we were sitting under a tree reading, he farted and closed his book and said, "Excuse me," and I remember looking around and thinking the tree had spoken. Barrett arrived with a Coke and sat it in front of Lonnie. No straw? You said ice. You didn't say anything about a straw, old man. Get me a straw before I run over your big feet with my chair. Watching him go, he turned back to us. He is a very good boy. Puzzled, he stared at the soda. Where was I? The bear quietly urged. Your grandfather? What about him? The Battle of the Greasy Grass? My grandfather, he was there. Henry nodded patiently. Tell us some more. Lonnie gave out with a tiny gasp, struck with recommencing his story. I was going through his dresser drawer one time looking for his pocket knife, something that I wasn't supposed to be doing, and I found something strange in with his socks, a totem or charm. It was shaped like a bird, but with this funny tuft of hair on top of its head. Barrett arrived with the straw and unwrapped it, placing it in the chief's glass and pulling up the chair he'd moved for Lonnie. You still telling that same story, Mahetso? Seeing Vic make a face, the young man explained. He had another guy who rolled him around and said yes, sir, and no, sir, but he got bored and fired him. He whispered, You might think I'm being disrespectful, but it's just job security. Lonnie waved a hand at him. Hush up and learn something. He turned back to us. So I found this tiny stuffed bird made of deerskin and took it out in the yard and was playing with it when he came over and snatched it away from me, Lonnie thought back. He was very angry, and I'd never seen him that way. He held the totem up to me and said that this was the true little bird in battle and that he had worn it since his first combat experience when he was 13 years old, that he would tie the charm to himself and that it gave him protective powers so long as the charm was never hit. Vic smiled, never one to be taken in by spirituality. And he tried this out, did he? Lonnie nodded. The second time at the Battle of the Greasy Grass, he was maybe 17 years of age and said that he was old enough to notice a great many things and see the reasons for them. He said the Cheyenne had been on the camp by the Little Bighorn for only one night. He said the next day around noon, the troopers charged down Reno Creek and drove all the people out of the northern camp and set fire to the lodges. But the people from the lower camp heard the noise and rushed north. The troopers retreated as the people surrounded them. My grandfather said the soldiers seemed drunk, but I think he meant panic-stricken and that they couldn't shoot straight. The bear rested a chin in his palm. This would be Reno's detachment? Lonnie nodded. Yes, it is so. Perhaps they were drunk. Lonnie shrugged. Perhaps. If I had been there surrounded by that many hostiles, I would have wished to be Stinko too. His eyes went past me to the hill on the other side of the road where the battle had actually taken place. The soldiers could have stayed in the cover of the trees, but instead crossed the river and rode to the high bluff where my grandfather said they were left alone because the men wished to return to the village to check on their loved ones. As they returned, they heard more noise and realized it was another assault. My grandfather said there was a woman who grabbed at his foot and told him that the soldiers were attacking from the north, so my grandfather turned and rode toward them. He said that the long hair and his men were at the level space at the bottom of the dry creek, and that the men on both sides fought valiantly, and that a man tried to shoot him from his pony when he charged him, but the soldier's carbine misfired, and so he knocked the man down with the butt of his pistol. When he turned his horse, the cavalryman was getting up and clearing his weapon and reloading. Raising the gun toward my grandfather, he fired. Lonnie lifted the straw to his mouth as we all waited. Tasting the soda, he made a face and looked at Barrett. "Did you get me a Diet Coke?" "I got you a Coke, old man." Lonnie made a face, licking his lips. "This tastes like Diet Coke." Barrett made an agonizing cry in the back of his throat. Finish your story." "What story?" "The story you're going to tell before I strangle you to death." He nudged the glass toward the young man with his fingertips. "Go get me a real Coke." Barrett folded his tan arms. "Finish the story before I roll you into traffic." Lonnie turned back to us, leaning in confidentially. "Have I spoken of the lack of respect that these young ones have for their elders these days?" The Cheyenne Nation blew his breath out from pursed lips. "You have mentioned it, yes." Lonnie glanced around. "Where was I?" "The cavalryman at the Battle of the Greasy Grass who shot your grandfather," I ventured. "Which time?" "The second, I think." Placing his hands on the table, he reared back. "Misfire. The soldier's rifle misfired again, and my grandfather shot him in the chest." He touched a spot at his sternum. "Here." The hand dropped to his lap. "My grandfather used to say that there were many kinds of men before a battle, but only two kinds after, the living and the dead." He turned to Barrett. "Go get me a proper Coke."
So that was the reading by Lou Diamond Phillips. And now we're going to be introducing Craig Johnson. And he, as you all know, is the New York Times bestselling author of the Longmire series, the basis for the hit Netflix original series Longmire. He's the recipient of the Western Writers of America's Spur Award for Fiction, and his novella Spirit of Steamboat was the first one-book Wyoming selection. He lives in Ucross, Wyoming, population 25. And without further ado, it is my honor to welcome both Lou Diamond Phillips and Craig Johnson. So we're going to have them come on and join me on the video. And there they are. Hello,
Was that a great reading or what? Huh?
Everybody's complimenting him on it on the chat already. When are we getting the audiobooks? That's what I want to know.
He doesn't mention in his intro there, like it is, Lou is also a combat-hardened veteran of audiobooks also, like that. And it was interesting to see like that when I approached the actors, because some of them really, there was a real sense of trepidation, because they had never done audio. Lou was like, "Sure, no problem. How many pages you want me to do?" Like, and I was like, "Perfect."
I got to tell you though, I listen. I had to read that thing about a dozen times, and this was a problem I had playing Henry Standenbear on the show. I had to read it so many times just so I would stop laughing. That stretch was so darn funny. And during COVID, I had to do it at home on my phone. You don't have the luxury of being in an audio booth where you can tell the engineer, "I screwed that up. Can we roll it back a little bit?" So I knew I had to at least get it, in a pretty good stretch. So I had to read it a lot because not only is that section gut-bustingly funny, the rest of the book is incredibly entertaining.
Oh.
It's so entertaining. It's probably one of the, I just remember laughing so many times out loud. I didn't expect it to be so funny. I know the Longmire series has humor to it, but holy crap, even just that first bit, I was trying not to laugh because they could see my face while we were showing the video, and I was trying to not bust out laughing so that they could still hear the audio. So thank you for that gift of laughter, especially during these crazy times. People are really going to enjoy it.
Well, that's the fun part. I know, whenever Lonnie shows up, in the books, like it's a shoe in like that. And so when you start like collecting the characters that are going to be in a particular book, I knew that Barrett was there. I knew Lonnie was there. I thought, okay, this is going to be a funny book. There's no choice. That at a certain point, the author has no choice. Like, the characters are going to, like, obviously, the timbre of their voices, like, and the humor that they carry is going to kind of save the day, like, to a great extent. And I'd done two previous books, like at Depth of Winter and Land of Wolves, and they were both a little bit darker. I mean, definitely Depth of Winter, and then with Walt trying to come back to who he was and trying to get home and everything in Land of Wolves, I knew it was probably about time for a little bit lighter board affair, maybe for Walt, for him to do the research, on the painting and on the little bighorn. And another one of my favorites is the scene where, they're in the bar, they're in the Red Pony Bar and Grill. And, and Vic, being an Easterner, she doesn't get it. She's like, what is this whole thing about the little bighorn? What the heck? Why is that a big deal anyway? Like that, and so she tries to get Walt to tell the story, about what it is that happened. And Walt is very reticent like that because he knows that Henry feels very strongly about, and has very, 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 a great deal of insight, about the battle. And so first thing he does is look at Henry and say, you have to promise to shut up and not interrupt me while I'm telling this story. And of course, Henry's like, absolutely, no problem at all. It's your story. You go ahead and tell it. Yeah, Walt doesn't get 2 sentences in before Henry's already modifying it. And so
yes,
kind of fun, I have to admit, like that. But it's a major point in American history. But I don't know, it's been mistreated an awful lot. The part that I always laugh about the most is that in that scene they're also watching one of the bad Custer movies. And after doing all the research for this book for the last 2 years, I can tell you there are a lot of bad Custer and Bighorn books out there. And the only thing that can rival that is the amount of bad movies that have been made, that are out there. And they're watching one of the really bad ones, which is They Died with Their Boots On, which my buddy Marcus Red Thunder refers to as They Died with Their Facts Wrong. And so, he...
Can you talk?
It's it's a question. I'm not trying to besmirch anybody's record or lineage or or anything like that. But there's always the pursuit of truth. You're always wanting to find out more about the truth, like that. And there were an awful lot of books out there that have come out in like the last 10 years, that have given a little bit more insight to the battle and to Custer and to Sitting Bull, and Crazy Horse and all of them. And so I'd be foolish of me to not try and include as much of that as possible.
Well, can you talk about your research process? And I'd love to know about like Lou's too when it came to his character, but you have such rich history in these books. And I'm curious about what does that research process look like for you? And then, eventually Lou, maybe you can touch on like, what does that look like for you as an actor trying to bring that to life on the page? And what does your back process look like? But for you as a writer, Craig, where do you start?
You know what? It's not. You're making it sound like there's a really wonderful and systematic, scientific kind of process to that. And I'd really like to BS you and tell you, oh yeah, absolutely, like that. And I've got a line sheet that I go through and all that. Nah, it's not the way it works. The way it works is I'll be interested to see what Lou has to say about this too, like that, because he's definitely a researcher like I am too. And for me, it's one of those things where I just read everything and I watch everything and I study everything. And to be honest, I don't take very many notes. Like that is what I don't do. Because what it ends up happening is I kind of refer to it as the creek bed method of research. And what it is I gather as much of that information as I possibly can. And then what I remember is what it is that needs to be conveyed to the reader. That's, the stuff that's the shiny stuff that's still laying on the creek bed, that I can still see through the water. That's the stuff that I think is important enough. And usually it's not the big information. Sometimes it's just the smaller, idiosyncrasies like that maybe aren't in like the big textbooks, but they come from, the small social histories. I mean, I read a number of like marvelous books. James Welch's Killing Custer is a magnificent one. Nathaniel Philbrick's The Last Stand. A Terrible Glory by James Donovan was another one that gives a lot of detail like that. And those were fantastic books. That gave a larger scope kind of feel to the project. But then there were also some really wonderful anthologies that had been collected like 10, 20, 30 years after the actual battle. And, Custer's Fall, like by David Humphrey Miller, and Cheyenne Memories by Richard Hardoff, like that. And what they were the oral histories of the natives that had fought in the battle. And up until that point, nobody paid a lot of attention, to the fact that there were two sides to this battle. An awful lot of it was Libby Custer's, campaign, to make her husband, a hero like that. And, a little bit of rubbing, and there's some tarnish there like that, once you start going through that information. And so for me, that pursuit of the knowledge of, and then I guess one of the other big things I tried to get across was important to me is that this was not just two armies on a battlefield. This was an expeditionary force pursuing a nomadic people. They were pursuing a city, is what they were pursuing. 10,000 people who had their women and their children, their elderly, the infirm, everybody with them. And there are two ways of looking at that. You can look at it and you can say, well, my gosh, what an inconvenience, to have, all of your loved ones behind you, and to have to be concerned with them as you're fighting this battle. Then the other side of that is that your loved ones are behind you. And that can make for an extraordinarily motivated fighting force. And I think that's, partially what happened there at the Little Bighorn. Their backs were against the wall. Their loved ones were behind them, and they had nowhere to go. Okay, so they were going to fight.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. And I love that you're talking the creek bed method and how, what really sticks out to you. But yet, as you're talking to us, obviously a lot sticks with you because you're able to, tell it back to us and able to, that's a lot of trust and I'm sure practice in yourself as a writer and as a storyteller. And Lou, do you apply the same method or is it very, very different for you?
No. It's very much like that for me. And the funny thing is, I just listened to that. And one of the things that I so love going throughout the book, and I said it to you in an email, Craig, was, the art history lesson, man, I just loved it. And the Battle of Little Bighorn is a huge thing for me. And one of the things that I loved most about the Red Pony in the Longmire series was that we had the little big man poster in Henry's office. My name is Jack Crabb, the oldest living survivor of the Battle of Little Bighorn, commonly referred to as Custer's Last Stand. It's one of my favorite films of all times. And what you said really resonates with me too, Craig, in the respect that, they started calling it revisionist history. It's not revisionist history, it's revelatory history. We are actually revealing the other side of this story, because Manifest Destiny and everything else, history for the longest time was written from the white Anglo-Saxon point of view, the Christian, we have the right to go and do all this stuff point of view. And you have to dig a little bit deeper and get to the truth and get to both sides of it. And, then there are facts and not opinions, which is interesting. But to answer your question,
please deviate. This is great.
For me as an actor, I mean, it's just like Craig says. I mean, seriously, it's all about the nuts and bolts. I've played a bunch of cops. I'm playing a cop right now. But, I've been on a half a dozen ride-arounds, you go, you hit the pavement and you learn. If you're playing a chef, you learn how, you go and hang out in a kitchen. So, and for me, being a theater trained actor, it always starts with the text. It starts with the manuscript, with the script. And it's, whether, it's Shakespeare or whatever. And in theater, you've got your dramaturgs. You're looking back at all these things that contribute to the truth of the piece. So when I got the pilot for Longmire, which was the best pilot I read that year, bar none, the first thing that I saw in the message, you have a meeting on this, and it's based on a series of novels. I went, oh, it is. And the very next day I went out and grabbed I think the first 3 So yes, I bought those, Craig. He's given me all the rest of them, but I bought the first 3. Okay.
That's different art.
And so I started, and I did the research, right there, go to the source, the Bible, as it were. And so I went into the audition armed with a lot of what I felt was truth about Henry Standing Bear. The first one being no contractions, and what was interesting is that the size they give you to audition with, there were contractions in those. I took them out, and so as soon as I got the gig, I called up our executive producer, Greer Shepard, and I knew that we already had a technical advisor, which happened to be Marcus Red Thunder. And I said, can I get his number? I got to talk to him. And I got on the phone and I got on a plane and I went to, Montana. I went to the Lame Deer Reservation because I've also had the wonderful opportunity to play many different native nations, from Lakota to Navajo to Inuit in the far north. They're not all the same, man. You don't paint them all with the same brush. You have to be very specific. So that was, my way of showing respect, and by, portraying the character with some integrity, was to go up there and hang out for a while, do some ceremony, which was wonderful, with Tiger Scalp Cane and his family. I was blessed by Charles, the little old man, who reminds me so much of Lonnie, met with the tribal chief. I mean, and just getting to know Marcus is like, there is Henry's dry sense of humor. So, it was, like he said, these things come to you and you absorb them, and you don't have to take the notes. You don't have to, you're not doing a thesis. You're doing the things that affect you and that resonate with you, and that hopefully will resonate with your audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that it can be seen, the research and what you absorb, the both of you, in the way that you tell your stories, and Lou, obviously you're a writer as well. And many people who are watching know you from being an actor and that form of storytelling, but you can tell in both of your works, the level of commitment that's there. And I'm curious about why that form of storytelling, and Lou, you can probably talk to a wide variety of them, but Craig, what is it so appealing about writing novels that's where you, as a storyteller, that's the format that you picked? What calls to you about that specific format?
I don't know. I mean, for me, it was, it's all about storytelling like that. And I guess it's whatever form of storytelling it is that you're comfortable with. I mean, the way I write the books in first person, and so in many ways, it's a running monologue, it's a 336 page monologue, inside and outside of Walt's head. Which I think one of the things, that why it is that Lou obviously responds, very strongly to the books. I don't get anything past Lou. That's the other thing. It's kind of fun. I always wait for the review to come in. The other thing that people might not know is Lou is also the official contraction finder. If I blow it and leave a contraction in the novel, Lou will write me an email. He said, just so you know, on page 272, And there are times, whenever Henry is when he's imitating somebody or he's retelling something somebody said, I give him leave, to be able to have, a contraction every once in a while. But generally Lou's right and catches me, and I have to go back and yank the contraction out, kind of like a bad tooth,
So he could just add copy editor to his long list in his resume of accomplishments.
A long list of Renaissance, jobs.
Yes.
Gosh sakes, but yeah, and that's the way I write the books. To me, it's as if you were to go into the Busy Bee Cafe, and Walt Longmire were to come in and sit down next to you and turn to you and say, "Let me tell you about what happened to me last month." At that point in time, I don't want you to even remember that you're reading a book. I want you to fall into Absaroka County and be in that world, with those characters. And, and in a lot of ways, the dramatic literature is really a powerful thing and Lou being a playwright and with the amount of theatrical experience he's got, he can, discuss this in a much greater detail than I can But whenever you're putting a piece together, I always tell students, I'm always telling workshop students, I'm always saying, you get one chance to describe a character, but that character is going to speak all the way through the novel, all the way through the play, all the way through the teleplay or movie or whatever. So you better give them a very distinctive voice, because that's the way people are going to recognize them. What their person or their physical experience, their physical appearance, it is relatively important, but not that important. Not as important as their voice. And I think that with whenever you're putting the components together for a book, it's kind of like composing a choral group. You're picking out all those different voices and knowing that they're going to be there for a reason. I knew this was going to be a big Henry book because it had to do with the Little Bighorn. It had to do with the history of the Northern Cheyenne tribe. I knew that that Lonnie Littlebird was going to be there. I knew Barrett Long was going to be there. All these characters are going to be there, and so I knew it was going to be a very strong Henry book, and that he was going to play a major component in this particular book. And that's fun. I mean, that's the fun part about writing a series, is that you can bring those characters back. You can, like bring them back. Like there's an ebb and a flow. They may have disappeared for a book or two, or maybe they're not quite as big in these books or two. And then they come roaring back like that. And that's the fun part for me too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love hearing that process about being able to sit in a cafe with Walt. Like that's really cool to think about, that's the way you're gifting us with this story. I want to quickly just reassure some people in the chat. We will have a Q&A session probably after this question. We'll start taking some audience questions and we'll be facilitating through those. I just want to reassure everyone, I'm not the only one asking questions here. You will get your opportunities. No worries.
They're getting restless. Look at it.
I know. It's like, oh no. No, they've been really active in the chat. There's wonderful, wonderful people from all over the nation and all over the world. A lot of people are trying to have Walt be president. Just vote Walt. Longmire 2020 is one thing. But yes, so we will be taking questions. Lou, I apologize for interrupting. If you want to add any thoughts to, storytelling and what attracts you so much, especially like we said, being a Renaissance man, you volley between all these different formats, which I understand. Being a theater major and an English major myself, like right. I 100% get it.
I've always looked at it as branches of the same creative tree.
Yes.
I consider myself a storyteller, a communicator. I've wanted to share, drama, and to communicate, that way. There are just different ways to do it. And the process of writing this last book for me, my first, novel, was, thank you. And I wrote a science fantasy so I could just make all that shit up and not have to do any research. Okay. So I just made it up, and you can't tell me it's not like that on my world, because it's my world, But
I think that's extraordinarily brave myself. Like whenever I started reading, I was like, wow, so you're not satisfied with the fact that you're going to try and write a novel. You're just going to try and write a novel that takes place in another world, in another time, so that you have to start from absolute scratch, and start building all of this. And I was like, wow.
Yeah,
and did a remarkable job.
Well, and I have to say, I would not have finished it. I want to give him credit. Every time I have a chance to say this, I will. I wrote the first, I reverse engineered this. It started out as a screenplay. And it was a screenplay because of my wife Yvonne's illustrations. She was going to do a graphic novel inspired by the Hans Christian Andersen short story of fable, fairy tale. Yes. And I said, wow, that's great. And I wrote a screenplay and realized it was too expensive. Nobody would let me direct it. So it's like, let's write the novel. At least that way we'll have, established the world. And, there were a lot of rules that I had to, to remember. I had to dust off a bunch of stuff. Getting back to narrative writing as opposed to screenplay writing, which is more of a blueprint than a novel is. In a novel, you're painting the entire picture. In a screenplay, you're going, okay, well, my cinematographer's going to want this look, and my production designer's going to do this, and my costume designer's going to do that. And when you create the novel, you're doing it all. And so that's why it so appealed to me to create this world and to do something in a narrative sense, and because I'm a reader. Craig knows this, and it's been a beautiful thing for a long time. It's really, I think, maybe one of the cornerstones of our relationship is that my wife Yvonne and I we read a lot, and I'm a fan. I'm a fan of writers. I have loved them for a long time. I've been inspired by them for a long time. And so to take a stab at that myself was daunting, but very, very gratifying, and like I said, I mean, it's people ask me, do you like TV better or film better or theater better or directing? And I say, no, man, I love it all. I really love it all. And I get different rewards from each.
Yeah. Well, and And again, that's why I called you both storytellers, because at the heart, as like you said, it's all branches of the same creative tree. And at the heart, that's what you do, and we're just so grateful because we get to experience them. And like you said, I know, Lou, you were like, I'm a reader and I'm a fan. Well, you're talking to hundreds of readers right now that are just so thrilled with what you both do. And I know that they all want a chance to ask some questions of you. And so it is your chance. Any of you, if a lot of you have been active in the chat already, feel free to ask some questions. I will announce when it is the last question, so you all can type them out. I know that one of the questions already, Lou, was if you're such a big fan of reading, what are you reading right now?
Well, first of all, I just finished a couple of days ago Craig's book, because I wanted to be. It's a weird thing for an actor, but I actually like to come off intelligent. It's a little strange that way.
There are some really intelligent actors.
So I literally just finished Craig's book and loved every page. By the way, the waivers, they got to come back at some point. Those were great characters. Reminded me of my dad, who was a Vietnam vet, and he would sit in his garage. It was like a scene out of the King of the Hill, where you just sit in the garage with beer. Yep. So I knew those guys. I knew every single one of them. But interestingly enough, and because I'm actually working on the sequel to the novel already, because man, nothing like a little positive reinforcement, and people have liked it already. And so it's like, all right, let me go back here.
I need to get my mark now. I'm just like, I gotta find it.
Yeah.
Go to my rep.
And so the other book that I was reading simultaneously to Craig's, which I'd never read before, I'm guilty. I feel terrible about it. My wife finally guilted me into it. I just finished The Hobbit. So,
Oh, yeah.
I know. I mean, once again, I love different kinds of approaches and different voices and different forms of storytelling, so to read Craig and to read Tolkien at the same time was a little head spinning, but it was fun.
I love that. What are you reading, Craig? Just out of curiosity, are you taking a break? We're gonna get show and tell.
It's even better than that. I've got a physical. I've got a prop with me here too, and this was important for me to do like that because it's a Denver author, as a matter of fact, like that. So I've been reading this one, and it's getting fantastic reviews. Those of you who have not read David's book, Winter Counts, like that, you need to pick up a copy. Like it,
cover. We have signed copies.
Yeah, it's a marvelous book, and I'll tell you what I'm not going to read. I'm not going to read any more books about Custer. I'm going to tell you that right off the bat. I'm not.
Don't blame.
I never read another Custer book. It will probably be too soon, like that. But yeah, and it's constant. I mean, that's one of the things. I mean, I'm about 13 chapters into the next book, like that. There have been some concerns. Some people read the title of this book, Next to Last Stand, and were concerned that this was going to be the next to last Walt Longmire book, like that. And that's not the case at all. Like that, I hope to be writing Walt for another 20, 30 years, hopefully, like that. But yeah, and so I'm about 13 chapters into the one after that, like that, and already working on the outline for the book for 2 years from now.
Well, can I just also add, I'm going to have a little bit of a plug for David there. We actually have David coming on for tomorrow at 5:00 is our next live stream. We have David, sorry, I was trying to see his whole name. David Heska Wambley Whedon, and we have him coming for Winter Counts. We do have signed copies at Tattered Cover Bookstore right now, and he's going to be in conversation with horror author Stephen Graham Jones. So you guys can join us. It's really, really good. It's also our September book of the month.
It also has a marvelous blurb by some New Cross author here on the inside flap there too. Like
what?
I'll throw that in there too, like that. So
no, you gave it a great blurb, and it's totally deserving of that. Going back to some audience questions that we have here. Let's see. Lou, you mentioned that Longmire was the best pilot that you had read that season. What about the pilot was so attractive to you?
It was smart. It was literate. It was, it's quite honestly, man, every year, and I'll say this too, no disrespect to Longmire, but Prodigal Son was the best pilot I read last year, So fortunately for me, I get to pick my favorites sometimes. Not always the case, I mean, every year you're going to get a dozen cop shows, you're going to get a dozen doctor shows, a few lawyer shows, and they really, really do feel cookie cutter, and so technically Longmire's a cop show, yeah, but it was a mystery, and it was also, one of the some of the most original characters I'd ever come across, and I liked Henry from the beginning. I was not only impressed with him, I feel he's a very aspirational character. There's a lot about Henry that I would love to aspire to in my life. You can't have a better friend. You can't have anybody to have your back more than that. And so I just fell in love with it. And I love a good mystery, and I have to say that our writers, Hunt Baldwin and John Coveney, and our executive producer Greer Shepard did a great job of capturing, I think, the world and Ab Soroka and the characters, even though they made some changes, to the book by adding some characters and whatnot. They were true to the spirit of it and to the voice of it, to a certain extent. I hope Craig agrees. And they maintained that over 6 seasons. Yeah. So I know people would have liked a lot more, but I can honestly look back and go, there's not an episode I didn't like.
No, that's really great to hear. And it's, I love that you get a say in what you're auditioning for. And it really shows that you've got a stamp of approval on it. Someone would like to know if either one of you would ever be interested in writing for children or YA, or if that's something that you've ever ventured into that type of storytelling before.
Lou, you have to answer that because you kind of already have, haven't you?
Yeah, well, it's so funny, man, because when I started out, writing the Tinderbox, Soldier of Indira, I didn't categorize it. I didn't try to write a science fiction novel. I set it in space, as a screenplay because that's what was hot at the time. You got Star Wars, you got Avatar, Game of Thrones hadn't happened yet. But then in writing the novel, it became its own creature. And after that, everybody's going, oh, this is a fabulous YA novel. I went, is it? Oh, okay, I guess it is. Because the protagonists, are a 19-year-old soldier and a 17-year-old princess. So there you go, Romeo and Juliet. It's a YA novel. And Yvonne and I prefer to call it a science fantasy. Now, Yvonne has done 30 illustrations for the book. All 30 will be in the hardcover. I think the ebook will have a few, but I don't know if it will have all of them. But what I love, and if you follow her on Instagram, you can see a lot of Yvonne Phillips. You can see a lot of her artwork. She's the one who has great children's books ideas and children's books illustrations. And so she's the one that, I think is going to end up doing stuff specifically for kids.
I'm looking her up right now because I need to find it.
Yeah, there's a couple of, she actually posted a couple of illustrations from the Tinderbox as a bit of a preview as well. So.
Wow.
Yeah. Lou, what are the ages of your children?
I have 4 daughters, and it takes a real man to raise daughters, as they say. Indigo is with Yvonne and I here in New York City, and she's about to be 13. And then my older girls are Grace and Isabella. They are twins, and they are 22, about to be 23. And Lily is about to turn 21. So, world, look out.
That is a combat-hardened veteran, I think, is what that is that just spoke. I think is what. So, I don't know. For me, it scares me. I got to be honest with you. The idea of writing for a younger audience like that. I feel like I'm personally responsible for messing up enough adults. I don't know if I can be responsible for messing up children and YA. It makes me a little nervous, I think. Okay, so I'll leave that to the combat hardened veterans, I think, at this point. So.
Yeah, no, it totally works. That's awesome. And I apologize, Lou. I did not know beforehand that it was a YA novel, and so that's really good to hear. And then if you could just say the title real quick, we have a lot of people asking for it. Do you just mind just saying it one more time so everybody can get it loud and clear?
Yeah, The Tinderbox, Soldier of Indira.
Thank you.
So yeah, and it is inspired from The Tinderbox by Hans Christian Andersen. Like West Side Story was, taken from Romeo and Juliet. This is exactly the same kind of thing. It literally pulls specific homages and plot points from the original.
That's awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it. A lot of people, like I said, they were asking. They were just making sure. So we're getting you some pre-orders here. And so I think this is a really interesting question of, Craig, how do you write about other cultures with such sensitivity? And for another writer, what is your best advice on this?
Oh, the big thing for me is like, we kind of live in a society and a culture that tries to galvanize all of us and, and put us all in little pigeonholes. And I'm firmly of the belief that we all have much more in common than we have in difference. And that's something that I'm always, trying to take into consideration, like that, as a writer, like, well, what parts of this character are like myself, like that, or like someone I know, like that, and how detailed can I be, in trying to make sure that universality. It's a quote that I use a lot, like that. When Steinbeck was winning the Nobel Prize for Literature, one of the statements he made was that good literature approaches a universality of the human condition, where we really get a sense of not only who we are but who everyone else is, and I think that's something that that literature and all art aspires to, like to try and find a voice and give voice to any and all, like that. And for me, that's just second nature in many ways. Okay, so
Lou, can I ask either the same question or a very similar question? Having represented multiple ethnicities in your roles, and you were talking even about a variety of indigenous tribes and what that looks like for you, if you have anything to add on to what Craig said about the sensitivity and the care when accepting those roles.
100%. It is exactly my philosophy as well, that we have much more in common. And I think it's one of the reasons why traveling is such an important thing. If you can manage that, I've been to Cape Town, South Africa, and seen the situations there. I lived for a while in the Philippines. I was, in Manila not that long ago, in Australia, Mexico City. You look at all of these places, and we all have the same concerns. We all have the same needs. We have the same wants. We have family. We have children. We have, we want the most out of life. Culturally, there are differences, and that's what you have to respect. That's what I think elevate and recognize. And especially for me, who has had the amazing privilege of playing a number of brown, races. I am ambiguously brown. I used to say, the UPS motto was my resume, what can brown do for you? It's always been about.
I don't want to laugh at that, but that's really good.
But it's always been about, getting it right. Because if I'm going to represent somebody, I want to do it with respect. I want to do it with dignity and bring the proper amount of pride to that community. And because I'm an actor, and I've even played white guys, which is great. I play the King of England in Camelot, so that's pretty cool too. Or the King of Siam, which, by the way, when I did it on Broadway, that was the first cast ever where everybody in the Asian roles actually had Asian blood. So for the first time in 1996,
That's awesome.
I gratefully accept the torch, and it's one that I carry, and it's a flag that I wave for diversity and for inclusion and whatever else. So I can't do anything differently. This face goes with me everywhere, so yeah. I present as, what I present. It's ambiguous, but, I do realize that I have the great honor and privilege and duty of being an ambassador for a lot of different groups.
Well, thank you for that. And it's wonderful to hear from both of you. I know that we got a lot of thank yous for both of those comments for aspiring writers and artists of all kinds. So thank you for that. I apologize for the abrupt switch, but there are way too many people asking this question. Even Lou and I asked this question before we went live. Did you build the staircase behind you, Craig? And where are you? Because it's so beautiful. And we've had so many comments on this damn staircase that I have to bring it up now. Because when we got up to go get Winter Counts, we got a beautiful view of it.
I'm kind of proud, like that, of my house. Look at, I built it. I built it myself. I built the whole ranch myself. I built the house. I built the barns, like at the shops, everything like that. I think Lou had the same kind of dad that I did, where you were slave labor until you escaped and went to college, pretty much. From sitting with your dad at dinner that one time, I just thought, oh my God, we were separated at birth, I think is what happened here. But so I built the whole place myself. But that specific stairwell, like, and then there's another one in another part of the house. A good friend of mine and Judy's, like at he's a sculptor out of Maine, and Glenn is Hines is a marvelous sculptor. Like, and he asked me one day, like, and he said, what are you going to do, to get up to that second floor? And I said, well, obviously I'm going to have to use some kind of spiral staircase or something like that. And he goes, well, what kind are you going to do? And I was like, I don't know, probably a metal one or something. And he hates metal. Like, and he's like, oh no, it has to be wood. Like, and so the next time he showed up with 2 Maine red pine trees, and they were gigantic like that. And so my job, which I learned is maybe the second crappiest job in construction, other than being the mason's helper, where you get to bring like a 60-pound rock in, and the mason looks at it and goes, yeah, one like that, but rounder on the right edge up there. And you get to carry the 60-pound rock back out and then go get another 75-pound rock and bring it in and be told, no, not that one either. The one that I saw, like, it's on the furthest away on the rock pile again. But it was, I basically, held everything like that, and we did the lofting for the railings, like at, where you wet, the railing, like at the wood, like that, and bend it around in small pieces and everything. And so it has a kind of a ship kind of quality to it like that. But that's one of the few things like that in the whole ranch that I didn't do personally myself. And so, of course, it's one of the most magnificent things in the ranch. Like that. So I just have to take that one on the chin, and just let it go. So.
You know what? The staircase wouldn't have happened if the house wasn't there originally, so that you really had to start there.
I like the way you think. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Hair flip. So I think this is a really great question to end on here, and it's mainly for Craig, but please, Lou, feel free to chime in. You've written so many wonderful books and have taken us on so many journeys. What did you learn from writing this book specifically, either about yourself or the writing process or anything else? What did you learn?
Well, the big thing for me, of course, was that, and I'll be interested to hear what Lou has to say about this too, like that, because I mean, the book that he's got coming out, the Tinderbox, is like it's epic. It's epic in nature, like that. I mean, the seminal material, like, it is epic enough in nature, and then he took it and made it even bigger and broader than it normally was, like that. But for me, it's that these huge epic stories, whether it be the little bighorn, or a battle going on in a faraway planet or something. The real trick in getting people invested, in the storyline, is to bring it back down to a human scale. I mean, that's what it all comes down to. It's always going to come down to character. And so I think no matter how large the storyline is, no matter how large, the tale might be, like, it's always got to have a human scale to it. And one of the things that, kind of like also that, leads a little bit to what Lou does for a living too, is that, I get a lot of people asking me, like, how do I get my books made into a television show? What do I do? How do I get it made into a movie and all of this like that? And I'm always giving them the piece of advice is that it's always going to come down to character. The maw of Hollywood will eat up your plots and your books and your stories so fast. I mean, we had 63 episodes of Longmire, and they ate up, every single idea I gave them. They just swallowed them whole like that. And what they're always going to be looking for is what Lou said earlier. He's right on target. And you would expect it, from the years that he's spent, in the business, for gosh sake, the insight that he's got. But it's always going to come down to character. It's always going to be about character. And the bigger the story, the more human scale you have to give it.
Lou, do you have anything you want to
add? Yeah. No, I, specifically to Next to Last Stand. I just, as funny as it was, and it reminded me of Junkyard Dogs, and I think I may have wrote about this in the forward to the short stories, how I was squealing with laughter in the Albuquerque airport reading Junkyard Dogs, and the same was with this. But one of the things that has always struck me about Craig's novels, whether it's the mystery aspect of it or the plot of it or the characters, and I kept seeing me and Rob. I really did. I was playing those scenes out in my head because I loved them. The dialogue was so spot on. But this is very relevant to what's going on right now in our country, and that is the search for truth. And we talked about this a little bit earlier. But history, how did we get here? What really happened? How did it resonate for the people that lived it? And what record was left behind that we need to learn from? And the central record in this, of course, is that painting, which, as Marcus says, maybe the facts are wrong or maybe the details are wrong, or, every one of the Indians is wearing the wrong clothes. But there is a record there that makes you search for what the truth is. And I think in this day and age, this is very important because we are in a time when there is so much spin, where you cannot say something that's true without somebody politicizing it or saying, well, what's your angle? Or, I want to believe that there is absolute truth. I want to believe that there is a core of humanity to our history. But we have to be honest about it. We have to be honest about it. We are dealing now, and my heart is always going to be with Henry. What's interesting is we're dealing now with a referendum on race and what our history has taught us and what are the repercussions of that. And we have to be honest, and we have to dig in, and we have to look at it. And I think that is such the spine of what this book is about to me on a deeper level.
I don't think there's a better note to end this on. Honestly, I do want to take a moment and give both of you a chance just to remind people who you are, about your books and where to find you online. But on a personal note, thank you. And I know a lot of people are thanking us here on this chat and just continuously saying like their heart is full and they're happy. And so thank you both for what you have given us in your stories and what you continue to give us, and also for your time tonight. It has meant a lot. And so thank you both for that. Like I said, I would love it if we could take just a second and just remind everybody who you are, where they can find you online, and about your books. If Lou, you want to kick us off, and then we'll end it with our book that we're celebrating tonight with Craig. So Lou.
My name is Lou Diamond Phillips. Probably know me mostly as an actor. But on the fabulous Longmire series, I played Henry Standing Bear. But as an author, which is why I have the glasses on tonight, and, as an author, I have my debut novel, The Tinderbox, Soldier of Indira, with illustrations by my wife, Yvonne Phillips, and that comes out October 20th in ebook, hardcover, and audiobook.
Yay! And Craig?
My name is Craig Johnson. I live in Ucross, Wyoming, population 25, like that. And I am the author of the Walt Longmire mystery series, like that, and was fortunate enough, like that, to have a television series called Longmire, like that, which was salvaged by the incredible performances of Mr. Lou Diamond Phillips, like that. And I'll be honest to you, you always hear all these stories, about, authors having bad experiences with Hollywood, and boy, man, I have been the polar opposite. I have just, I've made some of the biggest friends of my life, like, through this television show. And they're just some of the most charming and amazing people, gracious and kind. I mean, the fact that Lou is able to take away from the busy schedule and the things that he's involved with, like, to be, here with us tonight, like, and do these events with me. I'm just absolutely delighted. But boy, it just gives you a good indication of just what kind of a guy he is. So. Thanks, Lou.
Anytime, Craig. I'm your saddle mate, buddy.
And I'm in tears. So my name is McKaylee. I'm with Tattered Cover Bookstore. If both of you gentlemen will just hang on a minute after I cut the feed, that would be great. You guys can buy Next to Last Stand on tatteredcover.com and pre-order the Tinderbox. And so give me the full title one more time. I know it.
The Tinderbox, Soldier of Indira.
Thank you.
IDIRA.
Thank you. because I was memorizing the other book, but now I'm promoting all of them as we do here at Tattered Cover. And you guys can join us again for Winter Counts, which is the one that Craig mentioned, one of his new favorites, that you guys can join us tomorrow at 5 o'clock right on our YouTube channel. And we'll talk to David as well as Stephen, who's the author of The Only Good Indians. My name is McKaylee. I'm with Tattered Cover. Yep, there's David. I'm McKaylee. I'm with Tattered Cover. Stay safe, everyone, and happy reading. And we're out.
Wow.